Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. The so is this wonderful young brother who's sitting to the left of your screen. We're going to get into his story because he is one of the gentlemen that we classify as an ultra EntreMusician, absolutely doing it in the area of music licensing with maybe not one of the biggest companies, but definitely one of the best. His name is Kyle Hunter, and RhythmCouture is his company. We're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about his story. We're going to talk about musical collaborations that he's been on, and we're just going to go all the way there as we always do. But first, we want to say thank you to those of you who are catching this platform on Armstrong. Hey, thank you, Greg, for putting us on, and thank you for all of you. We've gotten some wonderful feedback from all of you who saying, yo, we're seeing the show, and they're sharing it, and it's all good. Now, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, you know we're also on VizD, and VizD is a growing platform. If you have a Roku TV, Roku device, you can get a lot of excellent musical content, including the EntreMusician. So Tay Brown, thank you for putting us down on there. We really appreciate you. But now we want to get into the story of this young man, Mr. Kyle Hunter. Brother, welcome to the EntreMusician.
Thank you, brother. Well, thank you for having me.
I appreciate your story, man. You've done some major collaborations with some excellent artists. Kanye, you don't even have to say his last name, right? Kid Cudi, Nick Cannon, Rhapsody. I mean, so you have really put in the work, not only as a musician, but as a businessman as well. Would you tell us a little bit of your story?
Yeah, definitely, brother. So, you know, my story, I grew up in Queens, New York. And pretty much like during the duration that I grew up, it was very tumultuous, I would say, because that era is coined as the crack era. So if anybody's familiar with that time, you know, that was a duration where narcotics were being flooded into minority communities.
Understood.
So growing up during that time period, we saw a lot of high rates of incarceration, wrongful convictions, substance abuse, domestic violence, because obviously there's a correlation between the drugs and these different types of things. Correct. You know what I'm saying? So growing up for us, we experienced a lot of things at a young age, but at the time it seemed very challenging, very difficult. But looking back on that, it was really a learning experience because what we realized is that it built character. So growing up within that environment where you weren't necessarily quote unquote privileged, you had no choice but to make opportunity for yourself. So growing up, music was that opportunity for me. And I understood that I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to be incarcerated. You know, I wanted to be someone that kids within communities that come from places like mine, they could look to as an inspiration to say, hey, this brother did something positive and he turned a negative into a positive. So I just hit the ground running musically. You know, like I was doing a lot of mixtapes. We would press them up, drive around the city, selling them out the trunk of the car. Right. You know, just getting to it and getting the name out there, getting the brand recognition out there. And then we started working with a lot of record labels, working with different artists, like you said, Kid Cudi, Rhapsody. We did some work with Nick Cannon. Just the list goes on and on, you know, Loaded Love. It's a bunch of talented people that we just were able to form these relationships with and get a lot of placements too in the process. So that transition into music licensing, and we just took it to the next level. You know, we formed our company, RhythmCouture, and we've been you know, doing it ever since, man.
That's what's up. Now, so during this time when you first started out with the mixtapes and whatnot, how old were you when you?
Wow, I would say during that duration, I started around 15.
15. Excellent.
15.
And
Yes.
you had somewhat of an advantage. I don't know about Queens, South Queens and whatnot being here in Northeast Ohio, but I would imagine because of the time frame that you grew up in, you had a major advantage because you had both your mom and your dad who were excellent role models to you, though. How do you think that poured in?
Yeah, definitely. I feel that having a firm foundation is critical. And unfortunately, like a lot of the communities that we grow up in, the fathers aren't in the homes necessarily. And that does play a direct impact on that child growing up. So the fact that I was blessed enough to have my mom you know, she was an educator for New York City Board of Education. She was a school teacher for many years. She graduated from Harvard with her master's degree. So education was a big foundation in our
Huge.
household.
Yeah.
You know, it was huge. Like it was it was not a thing where it was like, oh, you know, I don't want to do this. Like, no, you're going to school.
It's not optional.
Right. It's not an option. Like it's mandatory. It's like, all right, you know, it's not, you're not going to go to school. It's which school are you going to go to? So, you know, that was it. Then my dad, he was a military guy. He was in the Air Force, but he also was a businessman. He was a jazz musician himself. So we had a lot of different moving components within our household. And, you know, from education to jazz to all these different things. So it was a culmination just to really help build that foundation for us. You know,
that's excellent, man. That's excellent. Now you mentioned putting together your company, the music licensing company, RhythmCouture. Here's the thing. So you're doing the traditional path. Of course, you're working with these artists. I'm sure you're either signed to a label or doing the indie label thing. What was the transition between the two, the traditional front or the licensing? And I'll tell you why I'm asking this question, because it seems like right now, every musician who looks to their left or their right, they're just saying licensing. Like it's the thing now, but you were in it early in the game. So what was that transition for you?
So, you know, that's a great question. Actually, I was presented with the opportunity because an agent that did music licensing, they had came across my music online. So essentially I was doing something called Manic Mondays. And that was where me and my producers, we would release a new original song every week. Gotcha. So we built up so much buzz and so much traction between that and working with the labels and all these things that this agent reached out and said, hey, have you ever thought about music licensing? And at the time, I didn't know what music licensing was. That was like foreign to me. Yeah. And she says, you know, you should give it a shot. This is the ability to marry music with visual media. So essentially movies, television, digital media. And I said, all right, I like, you know, what do I have to lose at the time? Now, full disclosure, I did think she was full of crap because it was just so many people coming at me because of the buzz, you know, and people with broken promises. So I was like, all right, whatever. I didn't really pay any mind, but true to her word, I want to say maybe like a couple months later, I got a check for like $5,000. Right. So I said, wow. I said, you know, this is actually better because you want to be in a position where you're working harder instead of, you know, working smarter instead of harder. Correct. So, you know, when I was doing mixtapes, the problem was we were working hard. Like we had to drive around. We going to Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Harlem, Staten Island. We burning gas. And the ability to just place a song simply in a commercial or a movie, and you're getting paid on the front end, then you're getting paid on the back end because you're getting mechanical royalties. Correct. And you still own the rights to your song because it's non-exclusive. Correct. So I said, wow, this is actually a whole nother world. You know, I was like, this is awesome. So I did it for several years. I placed hundreds of songs in all kinds of companies. I mean, talking about Monster Energy, Powerade with LeBron James. We had Vice, Porsche, Puma, Marie Claire, every company you could think of. We were just racking up placements and the money was so good. I said, you know what? There's so many artists out here that aren't privy to this information. Like they're so used to the old business model where it's like, I got to get on, I got to get a record deal. Right. And, you know, they don't realize that, you know, a record deal is nothing but a loan with a messed up interest rate. Right.
Tell me about it. Preach now.
You know, you pass the offering plate, man. Like, you know, that's what that's what it is, man. You know, it's like they're giving you a loan. So at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I was always big on ownership. Like I didn't care what it looked like. Like a lot of times people get deals and it looks nice, you know, the videos and the jewelry and the rented cars, but what do you own at the end of the day? You know, and don't show me depreciating assets, show me some real tangible ownership. So that's where we started to move towards like ownership. We got to continue to own our music and also leverage it at the same time. So that's where I transitioned into owning my own company because I really felt I wanted to help artists do the same, you know?
That's excellent. And that's a brother who is absolutely giving back, who sees an advantage and doesn't hoard the advantage, says, well, how can I share this? And the one thing that I really do dig, as a matter of fact, allow me to throw this in, because 5 minutes after this conversation is over, I'm going to be submitted my music to Rhythm Couture.
Of course, brother. Of course, brother.
One of the things, because, I don't want to lose the train of the question, but here's the thing that I find. Number one, I do find artists who have made it, who have kicked over whatever tier they're at. They could be C-level, B-level artist, or A-level. And the first thing they want to do is set up their empire without saying, okay, look, there's a lot of information. There's an abundance mindset, so I can help as I'm growing, and I think that was the one thing that really caught my eye for what you were doing, is the fact that you saw it. And in the phases that you were setting, the higher the standard for you, you said, hey, well, let's break this off. This is not just going to be a company, but it's going to be a university too, so that we can teach. I can give a brother a fish, or I can teach him how to fish.
That's right.
And I really appreciate that about you, man. So in that regard, what was the most challenging aspect of growing your business the way you have?
Well, I think that that's a great question. I think that the most challenging thing out the gate is that this industry is very cliquish, and relationships are everything. So you're dealing with decades and decades of pre-built relationships. And you're basically like, I liken it to going to school and you're the freshman, right? So you got the seniors, you got the juniors, you got the sophomores, the music licensing, and we're the new kids on the block. So the thing that was challenging was breaking down some of those barriers. But what did help us was that we had so many years in of just individually doing music. So I've put out literally like hundreds of records, and I've worked with hundreds of music supervisors and licensing companies. And my business partner, Robert, he's the same. Like, he's put out just thousands of records, literally. He does music production. So we had these relationships, and we were able to leverage those relationships. So I would say it was challenging in the beginning, but ultimately we were able to overcome that, because one thing that I really want to hammer home to people, collaboration is greater than competition. So it's like, you can actually, no one is an island to themselves. Like, you can't have that mentality, especially in this industry, because you need those relationships, and as you get those looks, then you guys help each other. One hand washes the other.
That's absolutely on point, because again, it goes back to an abundance mindset. If you have a poverty mindset, then it's just me and my sandwich, and there's only so many slices, and I can get as much as I can. But when you have an abundance, it's like, it's a song, it's an opportunity, and there's so much out there in the ocean that I can swim and be cool. Right. So conversely, the challenge, what was the most rewarding aspect of beginning that journey for building your business primarily?
I would say the most rewarding thing for me is being able to give back. So I have an artist that he resides in Belarus. And if anyone listening is not familiar with Belarus, that's pretty much kind of like in the Russian hemisphere. And resources are very bad over there. Finances are very bad. And just to give perspective about that, essentially someone in Belarus, they could live a whole month off of $300 US. Wow. So they can pay their rent, they can have food, and that would sustain them. So financially, he was in a bad space. And the fact to be able to give this artist payouts from placements, and he's like, wow, I can actually, pay my rent for 3 months. Wow. Those are the types of things that make me feel good, like all the accolades and all that, those come regardless, but being able to help people and pay it forward, that's the best thing. And that's the most rewarding thing for me.
That's excellent. Now, was this young gentleman from Belarus, did he just submit to your company just like any other artist, and you went through it, or was there another story behind it that you were like, hey, I need to connect with this person?
So, what actually happened with him, he reached out to me through Instagram. So he sent me a DM and he says, hey, I see your company, you're doing great things. Would I be able to submit some production? And I said, of course. So he submitted to the A&R department. His production was amazing. It was great. So from that point, we included the music into the catalog. We started licensing and stuff. He actually was able to land a placement on one of Martin Lawrence's digital campaigns.
Excellent.
So so it was awesome. It was awesome. And I mean, he's continuing to thrive. So those are the types of things that I love to see.
That's fantastic. Now, to that regard, then, when you're talking to any up and coming musician, what is the best approach for them to submit their music, whether they're doing it? I mean, record companies are almost a thing of the past in that regard. But if they're going to submit to a company like yours, what is the best approach? I mean, because even for those who would come like your office when Don, reached out to us, there's a way to approach, and then you get many submissions that you go, and I don't want to kick anybody, but it's not professional. What would you say to an up and coming brother or sister to say, hey, this is the best way to put your foot forward and get in the door, at least get the attention of the gate?
Oh, definitely. So I think, to your point, which is very valid, being professional. So just the approach within itself. So when you reach out, do your due diligence about the company. So if you're reaching out to a music licensing company, look at their artist roster and look at the type of music that they actively pitch, because there's some libraries where they might cater to rock or they might cater to hip hop. So you want to make sure that you're in the right look. Like I always say, make sure you're in the right restaurant. You don't want to be at McDonald's if you were a vegan. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Why are you here? It serves no purpose.
Maybe you're going to change your menu for me. I don't know.
Right. It has the mentality. I'm like, it's not going to work.
Right.
So that's important, like knowing who you're reaching out to and doing your due diligence. And that even goes for, like, I would say, things like sending streaming links. Like, that's important, because a lot of times you get musicians and they'll send an email with like 20 attachments, and it's clogging up your email. And it's like, all right, that's not a good thing. Like, just send maybe 5 streaming links. And that's more than enough for someone listening to say, all right, this is tangible. We can actually work with this, so just being professional in your approach, and just always being mindful of that, because your reputation is gold.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It spreads very quickly. Like, oh, this artist is a problem, and you don't want to be that person. Like, you want to be professional, always put your best foot forward. And even if a musician submits and it doesn't necessarily fit our catalog, we always appreciate the professionalism. So we always let them know, hey, we listen and we're not discouraging you from sending more music. When you have more, feel free,
Excellent.
And professional artists, they get it,
No, that's absolutely excellent, because generally in most music licensing companies, it could be a one and done. Hey, you sent your 3 links and thank you very much, we're moving on, and there's nothing else. Would you speak also to the level of the production? And not just the presentation, but, most musicians now have home studios, have the bedroom, have the space in the corner of the basement, what have you. What is the quality of production that you specifically are looking for at RhythmCouture?
So we look for music that actually, for lack of better words, has personality. So meaning that if you're giving us a hip hop record, we don't want it to sound like everything else. Like, we want it to have its own unique personality, because that helps it stand out. So you can do a trap record, but if you put your own twist on it, right, and make it unique, maybe you have like a sound in there that no one really used before, or maybe like your performance on that track, you take it another way. So when we say like just unique compositions and personality, that's what we look for, just actually taking things to the next level,
Absolutely. I went through Michael Elsner's course, Master Music Licensing. Of course, we had Michael Elsner on as one of our interviewees, and his course is phenomenal, and it gives a lot of insight on what music supervisors are looking for, and then music libraries, and what you said about genre and making sure that your album is really lining up to the McDonald's menu, that they have, is absolutely on point. But the one thing that, in the couple of agencies that I've worked with, is I really do like the personal approach, and where if the A&R director is looking for something specifically, he can say, okay, well, maybe we need to re-edit this. Like, we like it. This groove is on point. This is going to serve our client. And do you give the same direction there at your company? Because there's some, like I said, it's just one and done, but RhythmCouture absolutely does that. You come alongside your artist.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we even have like a group chat for our musicians, because we like to cultivate a family experience. So if you are a producer and you're looking for a singer, there's no need why you should have to be out there trying to find a singer when you're a part of this family, because that's what it is, right? So everybody's able to say, hey, you know, I need a rapper on this track, I need a singer, and everybody just kind of work together. So yeah, we're very hands-on with our approach. If we need a specific song, we'll reach out directly to an artist that fits that and say, hey, let's work together. Let's try to maybe tweak this track to get it to where it needs to be.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, with regard to that, can you talk to the artist? Is, you know, because we're sending this guy Joe to you, right? And so can you talk to him or her about the splits that come down the line, what they can they can expect?
Right. So we are a little disruptive to the industry, I would like to say, because we did our approach differently. And what I noticed when I started doing music licensing, one thing that I didn't like was that a lot of music licensing companies felt the need to take the publishing from artists. Right. Yeah. And I feel like that's an old model that's dated. Yeah. And just because it's what's been done previously doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. Exactly. And you know, when we talk about growth and we talk about evolving, that's what we should be doing as companies. Like, if you're not growing, you're dying. So why are you adhering to an old dated business model? Correct. And we feel that musicians are just as important as the company, because let's face it, without the music, what deal are you executing?
Without fail.
Right. So yeah, you know, so at the end of the day, to give an artist the money on the front end, but then you say, all right, you know, we're going to take the publishing, but you keep the writer's share. Well, you're not letting me keep anything because you didn't write the song.
That is correct.
So it's kind of like a Jedi mind trick. Like, you're giving me something that you can't give me because you didn't write this song.
That is correct.
You know, so at the end of the day, is like just being mindful of those types of things. And that's why we structure the deals the way we do. Everything is 50-50, even down to the publishing splits. Excellent. You know, so for that particular placement, if we get it in a Taco Bell commercial, then we split it 50-50 with the artist. You know, we're not out here to rob people, you know, like that's old, that's dated.
That's real good. And I believe, you know, you were talking in one conversation you had about retirement money. And that's the way that the artist, the songwriter should really look at their catalog, that this is something that is of value, you know, to you, and 15, 20, 25 years down the road, or, you know, when you become a grandparent, that this is something that you can really leave as an inheritance for your grandchildren.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's about generational wealth.
That's correct.
You know, when you're a musician, you hold value. Like, your music holds value. You never know what song will be that song to take off.
That's right.
And, you know, you want to leave behind a legacy for your kids and their kids, so they can say, you know, this is something that belongs to our family.
That's right.
And I'll give you a real situation that just happened recently. So I got a tweet. I won't say who the person was, but he's a venture capitalist. And I would say this guy's worth maybe $230 million.
Yes, sir.
And in the tweet, he said, hey, I like your song. I want to buy it for $10,000 outright. So I spoke to my management. They reached out to him, because obviously we're not selling a song for $10,000. It's not going to happen, because the reality is that you sell that song and then tomorrow, if it blows up, you're kicking yourself because you sold yourself short. You know, so they were adamant that they wanted to buy this song for $10,000, and we were adamant that we weren't doing it. You know, the publisher,
not for that price, at least.
Not for that price. Not for that price. The price ain't right. You know, so that's right. You know, so I live it like I give it. I'm not out here preaching and telling these things to people that I'm not doing. I do it every day. I do it every day. And that's the main thing. Like we said, ownership and equity. Like, you have to retain that. If nothing else, retain ownership.
Absolutely. No, definitely look at your piece of music, no matter what it is. It could be 15 seconds that will just change your life. You know, that's all the company's using. They're using 15 seconds, and wow, you watch the switch that happens not only in your career, but like you said, generational wealth for your children also. So that's good to know. So one of the things that was really interesting, you know, in Michael's course was talking about the issue of retitling. Can you give a little bit more of a window so that the songwriter that's coming to you would know, hey, my song was called, you know, Brilliant Moon, and, you know, after the editing, you changed it to Sad Lullaby. What's that
Right.
all about?
Right. Yeah. You know, a lot of times musicians, they'll feel some type of way because they're very married to their songs. So,
Correct.
you know, they put their heart, sweat, tears into this. Might be a song about their grandma,
Yeah.
you know, and you
Right.
done change it from Granny Rose to Granny Smith. They like, man, I ain't feeling this. You know, like,
Yeah.
so yeah, the retitling, a lot of times it causes a little friction between the artists, but the music licensing companies do it because they want to pertain to that specific placement. So, you know, if it's a mood or something like that, they might retitle it. And, you know, that's for those purposes. But we normally try to not do that, to be honest with you, as a company. Like, we stay away from retitling, you know, to be honest with you.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Now, some of the retitling work may even lend itself to altering the publishing, if I have that right. So, with respect to Rhythm Couture, that's something that you try to stay away from. But if Taco Bell is looking for a particular mood, you might go, you know, we might need to tweak on this one.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's all on a case by case basis. You know, we try to keep musicians in a space and place where everything is total transparent and, you know, they don't feel uncomfortable. So yeah, it's a case by case.
Excellent. So tell me about, you know, that we've been talking about your business side so much that we're not talking enough about the creative cow hunter. So who are you as a musician? I mean, obviously it's hard to separate the two and approach your business from just logistics, you know, but tell me about the artist.
Definitely. So my musician name is K Sparks, and I have been doing music for over 2 decades, I would say. So I've been doing music for a very long time, and I've put out so many projects. I would say maybe now we're going on like over 300 mixtapes. We're looking at like over 300 songs on iTunes. Just a large catalog.
Yes, sir.
And my music is what I like to call life music. So it's music that's based upon my experiences, my life, and just being totally transparent. So throughout the years, my fans, they like that music because they can relate to it. You know, it's like, it's not selling people a dream, it's giving them reality that they can relate to. So I feel that's important. Like, you need balance within music. Like, you got a lot of musicians that they're caught up in fantasy rap. So they glorify a lot of, you know, they glorify a lot of things that they don't have, right? And that's cool. You know, I liken it to food, right? Like, you need a little junk food every now and then. That's all right, you know. But you need balance. You know, you need balance. So, you know, you can have the junk food, but you need some vegetables too. So, you know, we give balance. That's so, you know, that's pretty much my creative style. And it's been a real great career. Like, you know, I've had record deals before. Independent major deals, and all those things were a culmination that took me to where I'm at today. So I'm grateful and appreciative of all those things.
So K Sparks and Rhythm Couture, you have two different websites, or you're marketing both two different ways.
You know,
two different avenues.
But I still include some of my music within our catalog as well. So, you know, it's two different websites, but sometimes, you know, people might want content from K Sparks. So I'm like, all right, here's a record, you know, that you can license. But, you know, my focus is on our artists, like making sure that they're good, they're successful.
Now, you're an instrumentalist. You know, are you multi-instrumentalist, or is there one?
Well, you know, I used to produce. I used to produce, actually, like making all kinds of production. But then as things got very busy on the music side and the business side, I didn't do as much production and just more writing. So just writing for myself, writing for other artists and things like that. So, and we have so many producers now. It's, you know, we got a whole army. So,
So here's the trick question. What do you prefer best? Do you know, the business cow or the artistic K Sparks, or are you schizophrenic?
That's a great question, man. That's a great question. You know what? I would say, wow, it depends on which day you ask me. Right. And that's a transparent answer. Because, you know, some days you feel like being creative, you know, and you don't feel like dealing with necessarily the business side. And then some days, you know, you're more so into the business. So it's just juggling these hats. Like, you know, you kind of like a superhero. I'll say, like, it's Superman versus Clark Kent.
There
right?
you
Like
go.
you got two a duality going on, and you got to have balance, you know?
Oh yeah, but no more phone booths, man. You got
Yeah. Yeah,
you
exactly.
can't do the
No,
sell like
it's like you
right.
here, man, you know? And then now it's even more so because now we started a podcast. We just launched a podcast. So now
Excellent.
but it's great because it's helping a lot of artists. So
Yes.
yeah, it's called Diagnosis Success. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Now it's already launched. It's already out there, and
Yeah,
people can.
we just literally launched it last week. So the
Very
first
cool.
episode is out there. It's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's everywhere. So, and that's just another way of us to give back on a weekly basis for
Yeah.
free. Artists can listen to it. It's motivation, inspiration, and just to help people. Like that's our goal.
Absolutely. So we're going to make sure that we put all of this information and the links in the show notes so people can just dialogue. They won't have to go all over the internet. They can just come
Awesome.
to one place and make it happen. Well,
Awesome.
I'm very, very blessed to have met you in this capacity. It's an interesting thing with the EntreMusician because we don't really dialogue with people that we don't vet, and that's because we want our subscribers and our base to know that we're actually dealing with the people. These are the real people. And the one thing that was beautiful, again, in just trying to scout out your story and looking at the various places that you reside online to say, there's something here about Cal. And we want to just welcome him to the EntreMusician family because, you are really doing it. You have a track record. You have true footprints, man. And we're just absolutely grateful to know you.
Well,
But
I'm
before,
appreciative of you having me, brother. I'm appreciative.
is the feeling is like two-way street, and it's absolutely
Yes, yes.
mutual. But let me ask you this question now. Generally, as you prepare for conversations like these, you think, what, they're going to ask me this, and I failed. I haven't asked that question. What is the unasked question for Cal Hunter?
Wow, unasked question. So a question that wasn't asked before.
That's correct. And you think, they usually ask me this, but I didn't.
That's a great question. That's a great question. Let me see. I guess what is my biggest disappointment, I guess, because no one asked that.
Yeah.
So I explored that on one episode of our podcast, actually, because I think it's important for people to hear about that, because
Sure.
a lot of times it's like, I tell people all the time, don't let the internet discourage you, because no one's posting their losses, right?
Very
So
cool.
it's like, people can go on social media, and it's a very social media driven world we're living in. So everybody's posting the best pictures with the best filters and, posting all the luxurious things, but no one really shows the other side of it. That's important for people to know, because it's actually inspiring. Mm-hmm. So I'll share with you, at the time, this was it was an experience that was very, just a letdown. I was working out of a studio in Ozone Park, and that studio had a lot of talented musicians come through there. Like Erykah Badu had came through there. It's a lot of talented people. Mm-hmm. So one of my friends at the time, he was the engineer of the studio. So he says, hey, I got this contact up at J Records. And this is back when Alicia Keys just got signed. She was popping. J Records was the thing.
Yeah, right.
So he's like, let's go up to J Records, man. I got this contact with the A&R, and we're going to go to the city. So if anybody knows New York, going to the city is like, quote unquote, the city is a big deal, right? Because it's like, that's where you got Wall Street. That's where people making the real money. That's where things happen. $1 million deals every day. Yes. So we were like, oh, this is going to be great. So we got in his Jeep. We went down there, and we're talking back and forth about what we're going to do. It sounded like a hoop dream. We're like, man, we're going to blow up. We going this is it right here.
Been there many times.
Yeah. yes, right? Like, this is it. So we get to J Records. Security's like, okay, send us upstairs or whatever. And we're waiting in the waiting area for the A&R to come out. So, we still talking. We're like, man, it's going to be it. We're going to take off. We're going to get these hit records. Word. And an hour goes by. Then 2 hours go by. 3 hours go by. And on the fourth hour, I'm like, what's going on? Like,
What's up
are we
with your
gonna do this?
man? What's up?
Right, what's up with your man? What's going, like, he curbing us? Like, hey, what's going on here? And he's like, man, I don't know. And then the assistant of the A&R came out and was just like, oh, sorry, A&R won't be able to meet with you today. But what made it even worse was that they didn't even give like a follow-up. So it's kind of like they just played us basically. Like we went all the way up to the city for nothing. So at the time that was disappointing because we were banking on that. Like we had so much great music and we felt like this person was going to follow through. Sure. But what it did, like there's a saying I say, it's rejection is God's protection. So sometimes you want things and it's not necessarily what should happen within your life. So even though that door closed, so many other opportunities availed themselves. Yeah. So within that moment, it was very disappointing and it felt like, wow, and I'm pretty sure people listening to this can relate to this because it happens, rejection is part of it. It's part of the story. People look at LeBron James, he's successful, but in the beginning, he had plenty of rejection. Everybody goes through rejection, so certainly. Yep. So, so that was one of the knocks that we took. But it worked out, man. Long term, everything happened for a reason. So
it really does. It really does. I mean, and I used to pray all the time for God to open doors, but I've learned to thank him for the doors that he closed as well. And you have to thank him for it. And, we did a podcast on overcoming rejection. I mean, because even way back in the day, trying to reach out to people like, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, LA and Babyface. I mean, it just goes on. And you think, okay, this is the one, like you said, the hoop dream, this is going to be it. But how do you handle the rejection? Because someone will say no. I mean, history has it that there was a record company that turned down the Beatles. I mean, what did that guy do after they blew up? He was like, yo, he let them slip through. Yeah. But God does have for you what he has purposed for you. And it may be a detour here, but you're learning while you're making that twist and turn.
That's right. That's right. And like I tell people all the time, there's no such things as losses. No such thing. Only experience. That's it. You can see the glass is half empty or half full. You learn from that. It makes you better.
That is absolutely on point, man. So you got to tell me something else. That's the first unasked question. You got another one. I know you do. You're good, that was great, man. The disappointment aspect of what it means to go into a situation where you think is going to happen, and it's a sure thing because everything has been set up, but it didn't happen. Okay, what's unasked question number 2?
Wow. Let's see. What is a major obstacle that I had to overcome? And I spoke about this one time before, but it was only it was a written interview that I did. So actually the first person that I'm talking to this about. So a major obstacle that I had to overcome was a health issue. And what happened with me was, I want to say about 9 years ago. So I woke up one morning and like my eyes were like extremely bloodshot red, like just very bad conjunctivitis. So I just thought that like, my eyes just needed to clear up or whatever. So I took some Visine. I was trying to clear them up. They stayed bloodshot red for like an entire week. Like they just would not get better. So then I woke up one morning and I couldn't really walk. Like my knees were like all swollen. They had like a lot of inflammation. Wow. It felt like I was walking on like pins and needles. And it got so bad I needed a cane. Like it was that bad, like just a lot of pain.
Now, how old are you at this point?
Wow. So this happened when I was 31. Okay. 31. So I didn't know what was going on. I had a lot of issues, like, the conjunctivitis, the inflammation, the pain. I couldn't really move my joints. Like it was just crazy. So I was seeing multiple doctors. I was seeing an ophthalmologist for the conjunctivitis. I was seeing a rheumatologist for the joint issues. I was seeing a podiatrist for my feet because they were all jacked up. I couldn't really walk. Wow. And all these issues. So I was on a lot of medication, and it was so bad that the medication needed medication because there's side effects that you have to offset. But
so
yeah. So it was just crazy. So this went on for a while, a couple years. And then I never forget, like one day, I Googled like all of my symptoms. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a long shot. I'm going to Google it. And I saw that this specialist came up that was in the city. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go see this dude. he was out of network, so I had to pay out of pocket for him. But he zeroed in on my condition. And what it was, he said the condition I had was called writer's syndrome. And writer's syndrome is an autoimmune condition. So what happens is, it's like, if you have like salmonella food poisoning, which he thought that's what happened to me, most people get over salmonella, but there's a small percentage of people that if it seeps into your bloodstream, your body has a very drastic reaction to it. Wow. So he was like, that's what was happening. So he put me on medication and he told me, you know, you can use this medication, but it's a very strong medication. It's prednisone. So he was saying, like, I don't want you to be on this forever. We're going to have to make some changes. So I said, all right. So, you know, he told me about basically changing my diet. So he said, look, if you could get on more of a pescatarian diet, you know, just you can do like seafood, don't do any beef or pork, anything like that, but, you know, more vegetables, more juicing, taking supplements. He was like, you can actually reverse this thing, you know? And I listened to him. Like,
other than the pharmaceuticals.
Right. Because see, the problem is that, you know, the pharmaceutical industry is like drug dealers. They want to keep you hooked. You know, they're not in the business of making you better. They're just making you function, right? And as they got you functioning, you're coming back for another hit, another hit, right? So the goal is independence, not dependent, to become independent of these drugs. So I started juicing more, started having like just changed up my whole diet, started exercising more. I was able to get back to boxing, all the stuff that I love to do. And before I knew it, like my condition had reversed. It was like, you know, I was like at 98%, like feeling much better. So, you know, I had to fight back from that, just being in that hole physically, you know, but once again, it's like it builds character and it builds up your mental fortitude, because it's like when you go through these things, you know, like, hey, I went through this. I can go through anything, right? Like this is, you know, it doesn't break you. It just makes you into a strong individual.
That's right? What's up.
Yep. So, you know, it's crazy because this is the first time I'm actually talking about this on an interview, but it's good because people need to hear it, because I know there's people out there that might go through some health issues or whatever.
Absolutely.
And, you know, trying to make it. So, you know, changing up your diet can definitely have a positive impact on some health issues you might be having, you know?
Absolutely. We had the opportunity to have a conversation with Jean Ricks, who's a great smooth jazz guitarist. And she also has work that she does as an herbalist. And as far as your mind, your body, you know, in alignment with natural foods, plants. I mean, you know, she's just right on point. And so she's just as heavy into the health of the musician as she is into the soul of the musician and playing her music. So I'm down with this, the total body. Speaking of which, I venture to say that I see you're in your studio or your studio space. So how do you get down? What kind of gear does K Sparks get down with?
So primarily I use Logic for recording purposes. You know, my setup is pretty basic. You know, I got an Impact LX25, so that's pretty much what I use for keyboard purposes and things like that. And you know, I got my speakers, I got a Tascam, and this is basically what I use just for recording purposes.
Word up. Now, are you all in-house? You mix and master where you are, or do you outsource?
No, so everything is recorded here, but then I send it out to be mixed and mastered. Gotcha. So, you know, my producers that make the specific beat, then they'll mix it and they'll master it.
That's cool.
So I mean, we kind of got like a factory approach here. You know, it's like
it's good. You know, you got the Motown system on point, right?
Look, man, Barry Gordy. That's it, man. Yeah.
Well, that breeds another question. What's your favorite book? What books are you into to help to just feed your spirit and move you forward? I love autobiography. So when you mentioned Barry, his autobiography, To Be Loved, is up here as one of my favorite books. Stay motivated.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's two books that I've read recently because I'm a bookhead. I love books. But Blood Brothers is a book about Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. And if anybody's not familiar with that book, what it does is it discusses the relationship dynamics between Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. And they talk about how they were close, but then eventually, they became at odds.
Correct.
Because of Elijah Muhammad.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
you know, so just to see the dynamics of that and how that played out and just read it, you know, that book is so excellent because it's one of those books where as you read it, you can actually visualize these things in your head.
Certainly.
You know, so yeah, that's a phenomenal book that I would recommend for people. And another one I'm reading right now is Bezonomics, Jeff Bezos' book.
Okay,
and
excellent.
It talks about pretty much the beginning stages of Amazon, how he was able to scale that company to where it's at today.
Certainly.
So I love to read about people that, you know, they've pretty much like laid it out for people. So,
Certainly.
you know, they'll put their story out there in addition to how they were able to scale their business, because I want to know that you have a pulse. Like, I don't want to know how much your company makes. I want to know about you as a person.
That's correct.
You know, like what are your attributes? What is your belief system? Because that speaks value, you know?
It really does. I mean, you know, I've been at it a long time with regard to self-made millionaires, if we were going to use that term, you know, going all the way back to Sam Walton, to the Google story, Sergey and Brin, to Damon John's story. You know, I mean, I've just availed myself to autobiographies because, you know, the one thing is, it's not that people are, I want to say this the right way. It's not that their story is so extraordinary. It's not that they are so extraordinary with themselves. Many people who grew up in, say, Youngstown, Ohio, or South Queens, you know, it's just that we have taken risks to do extraordinary things. And that's what really, you know, rises, you know, makes the bar rise, because Jeff Bezos has chosen to look at the book industry at first and look at, you know, hey, you know, there's a better way to do this. And I'm going to make this my own, such as RhythmCouture.
That's right.
There's a better way to do this. And so let's take that and increase it.
And change the narrative, you know, like that's important. It's like, you know, you can always change the narrative and don't enter into a space and say, all right, well, this is how it is. Well, you got to start to ask the questions. Well, why is it this way? And how can we improve upon it? Right.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Wow. Well, it's been my honor, brother, to
likewise, brother,
have had this opportunity to enjoy this conversation with you. Hopefully it won't be our last time. I know Don runs a tight ship there, so it may be like, yo, man, you can't get him into 6 months down the road. Well, that's cool. we will roll with that, but I mean it when I said, brothers and sisters who are watching this, I mean it when I said, you know, we've been blessed to have many people on who talk about sync licensing and talk about what it is to have your music in a music library. This is one that I'm going to take the deep dive into, and I will report back to you as to whether they rejected me or they accepted me. And then you can see how I handle rejection. Oh, man.
Oh, man.
This is Cal Hunter, a.k.a. K Sparks. He is one of the ultimate EntreMusicians. Again, I will put all his information in the show notes. You can check him out. Check him out for yourself. Kick the tires over there at RhythmCouture and let them know, yo, we heard about your company on the EntreMusician. And hopefully that scores you 1 or 2 brownie points. Any last words, brother?
I just want to tell people out there, well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, brother. You know, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I just want to encourage people that regardless of the space and place that you're in right now, that it doesn't matter how your story started. Today, you could change the ending. So you don't have to look at where you came from and say, oh, well, you know, it's just hard. Like, no, at this very moment, you could change the whole trajectory for your life. You could say, all right, you know what? I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. I'm going to actually take that negative and turn it into a positive. So, you know, everybody just be encouraged and be motivated.
That's what's up, ladies and gentlemen. That's Cal Hunter. He's an EntreMusician. My name is Jerry B. I'm an EntreMusician, but you know what? So are you. We will definitely see you next time. Peace and blessings to you.